This week, all eyes are on Busan, South Korea, where INC-5 of the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations is underway. This is Sonia Sudilo, Gaia Global Communications Officer, and joining me is Arpita Bagat, Gaia Asia Pacific's Plastic Policy Officer. In yesterday's updates from the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations, Arpita highlighted the critical call from the indigenous peoples to be recognized as rights holders, not just stakeholders, in the treaty process. She emphasized that indigenous communities have long been stewards of the planet's ecosystem, and their deep knowledge of natural resource management is crucial in the fight against plastic pollution. Arpita urged that their rights to land and resources be acknowledged, with their contributions playing a central role in shaping sustainable nature-based solutions to the global crisis. Hi, Arpita, how are you today?
I have mixed feelings about how I am, but I'm alive, and that's what matters.
Okay, so let's delve into Shell's analysis of industry presence in the INC. Can you share more about their key findings and how is this affecting the negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a recurring theme since the beginning of INCs, and I think around INC-3, our ally CL started doing this analysis based on the list of attendees that were submitted, that was available by the Secretariat on their website. And no surprises, this time the industry presence has increased. But I think we also need to be careful that the actual increase might be much higher. So their analysis is basis of, the official list that the Secretariat has provided, where we see, for example, Malaysia having an industry in Asia, but I'm pretty sure there are other countries who have industry join us in this INC. I think they counted about 220 industry participants for this INC. At the same time, what we know is that a lot of the industry this time has come without their, industry suits, and so it has been hard to figure out who they are. I think they're just hiding in NGO style dress up this time, just to blend in the group. But we know this is higher than previous INC, even with the official numbers. Dow and ExxonMobil were the best represented fossil fuel and chemical companies, with numerous lobbies attending the talks. And if you compare that with folks from the Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastics Treaty, and just to remind people, this coalition has a very strong conflict of interest policy. So it is independent scientists, it is scientists who do not have conflict of interest or are influenced by any actors. And the Indigenous People Caucus as well. So it's 3-1 in favor of the industry for scientists from Scientist Coalition. It's 9-1 when we compare it with the Indigenous Peoples Caucus. But like I said, this is only the official numbers, and the likely numbers are much higher than this. I wouldn't be surprised if it's double of this, to be honest, Sonia.
That's a lot, huh? So today's informal consultations or discussions are close to civil society groups. Why is this and what does it mean for the process?
Yeah, so we have, I don't know, we are 4 days in this negotiations, and contact groups have either concluded their work, at least CG3, where finance was discussed, or they have basically reached a point of impasse, especially the groups where the core obligations, supply and supply chemicals of concern were discussed. So, which is CG1, I think that was the most sort of controversial one, as well as CG4, where objective scope were discussed. And we know there was a very clear divide between ambitious countries and those who want a treaty which is voluntary, which is national, based on national circumstances, and which does not have any binding obligations. So we in some cases, for some provisions, we have the text again really bloated. For example, the Article 12 on capacity building, technology transfer, just the first paragraph that I witnessed went from a few sentences to, like sentences which were, I think, 12 to 14 sentences. That just shows the 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 fear that we have, and also some member states have expressed that we might be going back to a compilation text style text, which has a lot of brackets, which has a lot of wordings in there that it perhaps is not even legally sensible. So the chair decided to, after the stocktake plenary that happened day before evening, which you all might have seen or not seen, where there were some really strong statements from Panama, from Colombia, that were supported by a few, as well as the statements from Russia, Iran, and the likes, who, of course, there was a clear division in terms of progressive countries and non-progressive countries. But the one thing common between the two is they both want to see, at least they claim publicly to want to have real negotiations and move the process forward and arrive at the treaty text. And that's what the chair has been pushing for. But what he's proposed now is informals with country delegates and head of delegations plus one that would be had between today and tomorrow. The co-chairs of the contact groups were asked to kind of synthesize the outcome text that they have developed and kind of presented today. And I believe those discussions are happening. Civil society is obviously just waiting and hoping and praying. And we were expecting to see the next version of the non-paper out. It's supposed to have been out by now, but we don't have information yet about the non-paper. I keep checking the in-session documents. Hopefully something would be out today, and then we will know sort of what actually happened behind the scenes. Sonia, so it's again a very exclusionary way of making decisions that will impact all of us, everyone alive and everyone to come on the planet. And once again, rights holders and civil society groups who have so much expertise, including scientists, including independent scientists, indigenous scientists, and waste pickers, and all of those communities are out of the rooms. And again, in fact, there is also the similar concern, and we have talked about it before. The progressive countries, for example, from Africa or from small island developing states who have smaller number of delegates, are often the ones who struggle to make themselves heard, or struggle to be present across contact groups, and might be struggling to make their voices heard again in their own informals. And just to remind us all that it was very clearly decided that no more than 2 contact groups would take place at a time. Yesterday, that rule was also broken. 3 contact groups were happening simultaneously, and so it's been very challenging for us, even as civil society, to follow what's going on. So we can only imagine what the delegates are doing and how hard they're working. Sonia.
You mentioned that the informal consultation will happen today and tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. So what exactly are they looking at? Are they looking at the non-paper? Are they looking at the CG synthesis? And then after that, what will happen on Sunday?
Yeah, very good question. So the answer is they're looking at everything. They're basically, non-paper has been the basis of negotiations, discussions, and contact groups so far. And the funny part is, if folks remember, is that we had intersessional group work in August where reports came out, which were on finance as well as on chemicals of concern in plastic products. And none of these reports have been referenced or taken into account. I think few delegates did raise that, but it goes to show that we for everything that we've worked towards, like, and we were excluded also, so as civil society from in these intersessional meetings. All of those meetings, all of those discussions, like, where do they go? Where do they evaporate? Because we work hard to provide evidence, we work hard to provide data and provide our perspective through the delegates and to the delegates, and again, it's not accounted for. So now where we are is that we had the non-paper and it was discussed line by line. So there was first reading done where delegates were invited to suggest text or suggest anything that they feel is missing. Once that was done, there was again the second line by line negotiation where again we had some bracketing done, some deletions suggested through the brackets, and some more rephrasing, and basically countries saying, yes, we agree, and no, there is a lack of agreement. And we are still working on a consensus-based procedure. And so even one country, declining to agree with a term or a text means that term can fall off and become something else. And we've seen that in the provisions for emissions and releases, for plastic waste management. We have country submissions available where some countries have expressed support for energy recovery, which essentially means waste burning technologies, chemical recycling, and so on. And that's something that Gaia has been fighting for the longest time. So there are some concerns in terms of the language, but we also have some good news that I hope we can come to and talk about. But essentially, it is the non-paper, it is the editing of the non-paper, and perhaps a ballooning of the non-paper. What happens to the brackets, how those brackets are removed, because eventually the final text cannot have brackets because brackets indicate disagreement. All of that, like I said, Sonia, we don't know because it's happening behind closed doors with few number of people through informal processes, and informal processes are not like well structured. They just, sometimes we've seen it in plenary, the last plenary at INC-4. I think we will also see some drama in this plenary on Sunday night. Countries come together, there is a huddle, somebody drafts something and then circulates it around. Some countries agree, some countries are not even asked, and it just goes as, okay, this group agrees. So there is real concern in terms of process with regards to informals, with regards to exclusion of civil society and right holders, with regards to lack of transparency. And we were expecting to have a plenary this evening to understand what happens, but now we hear that plenary is not happening, so that there is likely going to be a plenary tomorrow or day after, we don't know. But essentially today and tomorrow, civil society is sitting ducks. We're trying to do what we can by supporting our member states, but it's quite stressful. I'm on edge since I found out this informals plan last night. Back to you, Sonia.
Thanks, Peter. Now let's look at some of the positive developments the past days. Can you tell us the number of countries supporting production reduction and supporting the Africa Negotiation Group?
So we have some great work that our members have done across the globe. And we have just last night, right before, deadline was 9 p.m. to submit conference room papers. These are official submissions that a bunch of countries make. to the Secretariat expressing their agreement on a certain issue, on a certain provision, and indicating the text that they want. So this is something that we really should be talking about a lot, is that we had a submission made by Panama on behalf of the African group, European Union and its 27 member states, and including UK, including many countries, some countries in Asia. We had New Zealand signing it, we had Bangladesh endorsing it as well, and Australia. So this is the provision on sustainable production, Article 6, which clearly says that there will be an annex adopted at the first conference of parties. This is basically the COP for Plastics Treaty that will begin after the treaty is finalized, is signed and then ratified. So we're looking at it some years down the line, hopefully maybe less than 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, I'm not sure. It also very clearly articulates that the measures have to be across full life cycle of plastics, starting with, starting across the full life cycle. It also says that there should be data on production, imports, exports of primary plastic polymers, and measures to achieve the global target. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, Philippines was one of the folks who were leading this. So this is official count, and the same textual submission was made by PCIDS as well. And PCIDS is 14 member states. So if we do this count, this is about 90 plus 94 odd countries who have supported this article on sustainable production. And it's very clearly outlined. It's very simple language, but it captures the ambition that we want to see. So we know that a lot of countries are supporting this. The cuts in production, we just need to make sure that this is what we see in the final treaty draft that comes out from all these informals. And if not, then we will continue to fight this battle of including this very important provision. Regarding finance, so the African region has been leading on finance since the start. They've been talking about financial mechanism. They've been talking about new dedicated finance since at least INC-2 and 3. And they have been working through the last year and a half odd to gather more support. And when I say gather more support, also find other champions who in the developing world who want dedicated fund, because we know the existing finance is not enough. There has been this discussion also in the last INC as well as the intersessional group, which is a clear division between donor countries that are expected to fund the implementation of the treaty and recipient developing countries that have borne the disproportionate brunt of plastic pollution. This proposal has evolved, and it was released quite early in the negotiations this year, this session. And this is a conference note paper by Africa Group, BRULAC, Cook Islands, Fiji, and Federated States of Micronesia. And it was supported also by a lot of the Asian developing countries because it speaks to their demands as well for a dedicated fund. And it's a long paper, so I won't be able to read it, but I think we can post it in the comments that our members can see for themselves. And so if you do the count again, once again, we have 90 plus, about 94 odd countries, or maybe and actually more if you take the statements from contact groups who support this provision, this proposal. There was also proposal from developed countries, US, UK, EU, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Republic of Korea, which talks about having private finance and not having a dedicated fund, but relying on existing financial mechanism, GEF and the likes, which we know is not enough, and we've heard enough about that even in the climate COP. So their count is about 37 countries. So we know there is a disproportionately higher number of countries supporting dedicated fund, a new, sustainable, timely dedicated fund for treaty implementation as well as compliance. So it includes the activities not just for implementation, but also for reporting and capacity building and technology transfer and all of that that the countries need. There's also the proposal for remediation. You know, a lot of our countries are dealing with legacy plastic pollution. So the remediation for that, for just transition, because that's again something very, very important for our communities. And there are also a few countries that are leading, and Ghana has been championing it from the very start, to have a plastic polymer fee that is imposed on polymer producers. And the idea is that the producers give a fee that goes into this dedicated fund through the countries, with a part of it that the countries get to keep, but a part goes into the dedicated fund. And of course, it comes back to the countries for implementation. And we are trying to see how we can have more champions on that, because this is quite critical to polluters' accountability, and not just letting polluters pay and get away polluting, like we've been seeing in the case of ideas like plastic credits, and EPR has so far focused on the downstream activities, but this is looking at really upstream activities. And as you know, the recent report on subsidies given to polymer producers is 45 billion US dollars. And I might be, um, you know, not giving the exact figure. I might be underestimating it, but that's the latest numbers that we have from CUNO, from Donald Steenblick's team. And I spoke to him just day before, and it's a shocking number. So if our countries can subsidize production, and they've done it for so long, and favor the real polluters of our planet, who keep producing plastics, and we know through our analysis that the demand for production plastic producing facilities are falling. The GDP is not as dependent on plastic production as the countries make it seem to be. You can refer to Gaia's post-plastic economy fact sheet briefing for that. So the economics is also on our side, basically. And we really worked to get these numbers, both us and our allies, to demonstrate to our countries in Asia and the Pacific that really continuing to pollute the planet is in no one's favor, not in the favor of communities, not in the favor of civil society, not in the favor of the economies of our countries. And in the long run, we know that reuse, refill systems can provide more jobs, because as I speak, we have the evidence that jobs in the petrochemical sector are falling, but jobs in the reuse sector are growing. And Gaia has those numbers. We have those reports. We have the evidence of how to do reuse as well through the Asia Pacific report that we released just recently with our friends from BFFP on unpacking reuse in Asia. And that, just to say that event, this release of this report also convinced some of our Asian countries who were present to see that this is really possible, and this is the future. So it's really a matter of our countries understanding that when we speak as civil society rights holders, we are speaking also in their favor. And the health cost, which are completely hardly accounted for Asia, I don't have the numbers because there are no numbers. As far as I know, are probably in trillions of dollars of the last maybe even just 20, 30 years in terms of the impact that the communities face. So we basically, the bottom line is we have some champions and we have some leaders who agree with us, who know the impact. Please see the speech that the Panama leader delegate made. It's available in the plenary, the last plenary. It is also on our social media channels, and that really speaks to, the truth of the matter. Back to you, Sonia.
Peter, with all these updates and development, what are the next steps in the negotiations?
Wait and watch, with bated breath, sometimes with holding our breath and running around. And yeah, so some of us are seeing this as an opportunity to recharge today and tomorrow, to just get some rest, actually see some of Busan, the beautiful city of Busan, um, and go to the beach or go to the market. I have not had a chance to do that. So right now we are encouraging our members to get some rest, because Sunday night is going to be a long, long night. It is likely going to be the moment of truth for most of us, and it is likely to go on till the morning of Monday. And this is something that even member states were told way ahead in advance, so that they don't book their return flights on Mondays. And actually, their returns is hopefully now on second night or third. So yeah, we are likely going to see the longest plenary in the history of INC. And I'm not sure if those of you watching would be able to watch it online, losing your sleep, but be assured that some of us will be awake and fighting the battle for all of us and for all of our planet. Um, and right now we are waiting for the non-paper new version. Hopefully we get to see it today. And we will continue to support our champion countries to fight the battle, both inside and outside. And yeah, we have the right numbers. We have the truth on our side. We also need to ensure that our media friends, who have so much power to take this message to the world, to the people who currently do not even know that there is something like this being discussed, who don't know the stakes, how high the stakes are. Um, I'm really urging our media friends to pay attention, to understand the gravity, and to support the right solutions that are based on zero waste hierarchy. And many member states have called for waste hierarchy to be included in the provision for full life cycle approach, because that is the UNEA mandate, and we cannot forget that, and we cannot let anyone forget that. So with that, I think I can conclude for today, and hopefully we have some news for folks tomorrow. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Peter, for bringing us today's update. So please rest, recharge, and keep fighting the battle. To everyone watching, keep following Zero Waste Asia on Instagram and YouTube, and Gaia Asia Pacific on Facebook and LinkedIn for real-time updates and highlights. We'll see you again tomorrow for more from the heart of the negotiations.